The morning sunlight poured through the wide diner windows, painting golden streaks across the worn-out booths, and the smell of freshly brewed coffee drifted through the air. Emily had been working at Jenny's roadside diner for 6 long years, ever since her husband walked out and left her to raise her little boy alone. Every day felt the same: the early shift, fake smiles for rude customers, and counting every dollar tip just to make it through another week. But that morning was about to become the one she would never forget, the day a single act of kindness changed her entire life. If you believe that kindness still matters, that good hearts can change the world even in the smallest ways, please take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us spread more stories that restore faith in humanity. It was a quiet Tuesday. The sky was bright and cloudless, but inside the diner, the mood was heavy. The breakfast rush had just ended, and Emily stood by the counter, wiping down tables with her tired hands. Her apron was stained, her hair pinned up neatly but with strands falling loose from exhaustion. She had barely slept. Her rent was overdue, her son's school fees were unpaid, and she'd spent the night wondering how to stretch $35 until payday. Just then the doorbell jingled. The sound was sharp and sudden. A man stepped in, tall, broad, with a thick beard streaked with gray and a heavy leather vest covered in biker patches. His arms were tattooed, his face rough and unreadable. Every head in the diner turned toward him, and for a second the chatter died down. The regulars whispered among themselves. Bikers didn't usually stop by this place unless something was wrong, but Emily didn't flinch. She offered the same tired smile she gave to everyone. "Morning, sir," she said softly, handing him a menu. He nodded without a word and took a seat in the corner booth as she poured his coffee. She couldn't help but notice his eyes. They were intense but sad, like someone who'd seen too much of life. He ordered eggs and bacon, and when his meal came, he ate in silence, staring out the window. There was something heavy in his presence, something that made Emily's chest tighten. When he was done, he reached into his vest for his wallet, then paused. He patted his pockets once, then again. His expression darkened. Finally, he looked up and sighed. "Looks like I forgot my wallet at the gas station." The diner went quiet again. A few customers smirked, assuming he was lying. Emily could almost hear the judgment in the air. She had seen it before. Truckers, drifters, bikers, all treated the same way. But something about the man's embarrassed eyes stopped her from asking questions. "It's okay," she said gently. "Don't worry about it." He frowned. "No, I'll come back and pay." But Emily shook her head. "It's just breakfast. I'll take care of it. Everyone forgets things sometimes." The man looked at her for a long moment, his eyes searching hers. Then quietly he said, "Thank you." Emily smiled faintly. "You're welcome. Have a safe ride." He left, the sound of his boots echoing across the diner floor, and soon the distant roar of a motorcycle faded into the horizon. Emily didn't think much of it after that. She had done what she always did, a small act of kindness, even when she could barely afford her own bills. That night, she counted her tips. She was short again, too short. But when her son Noah came running to hug her, she forgot her worries for a moment. He showed her a crayon drawing he made at school, a little house with a bright yellow sun and 2 stick figures, "You and me, Mommy." She smiled through the tears that always seemed to sit quietly behind her eyes. 3 days passed. Then something strange began to happen. It started with the sound, distant, low, and growing louder, a rumbling like thunder. The windows shook, the dishes rattled on the shelves. Emily stepped onto her small porch, confused, and that's when she saw them. Dozens of motorcycles, gleaming chrome, black leather, roaring engines, filled her quiet street. One after another, bikes lined up in front of her house until the entire block seemed to tremble. Neighbors peeked through curtains. Children stopped in their yards, wide-eyed. Emily froze, clutching her son's hand tightly. And then, from the front of the line, a familiar figure stepped off his bike. The same man from the diner, the one whose meal she had paid for. He walked toward her, his leather vest glinting under the afternoon sun. Behind him, more bikers stood tall and silent, watching with respect. Emily's heart pounded. She had no idea what was happening. The man stopped at her gate. "Ma'am," he said, his voice deep but kind, "you probably don't remember me." Emily nodded nervously. "You're the man from the diner." He smiled faintly. "Yeah, name's Jack, but most folks call me Iron Jack." The name sounded familiar. She had seen it on the news months ago. A biker leader who ran a group that helped rebuild homes for veterans and rescued abused teens from bad neighborhoods. A man both feared and respected. Jack took a deep breath. "When you paid for my meal that day, you didn't just cover a breakfast. You reminded me of something I'd forgotten, that kindness still exists in this world." "I'd just come back from a funeral of one of my brothers. I was angry at everything. I was ready to quit the group, walk away from everyone. But then you, a stranger who had nothing to spare, did something no one else did. You helped me without asking for anything in return." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "It was just a meal," she whispered. Jack shook his head. "No, it was a message, a reminder that not all hearts have gone cold." He turned around and motioned to his group. "Boys," he said, "bring it out." From the line of bikes, a few men stepped forward carrying large boxes. Tools, paint cans, wooden boards, and bags of groceries. Emily's eyes widened. "We heard you've been struggling," Jack said gently. "We're here to fix that roof of yours, patch up the walls, and make sure your boy never goes hungry again." Emily covered her mouth, trembling. I can't accept this," she said, her voice breaking. Jack smiled kindly. "You already did your part. Now it's our turn." What happened next left the entire neighborhood speechless. The bikers got to work, hammering, painting, repairing her fence, mowing her lawn. Some unloaded groceries, others handed her son a brand new bicycle. The sound of engines was replaced by laughter, by hammers and drills, by the warm hum of life returning to a home that had long been filled with silence and worry. Emily stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face as she watched strangers, men who looked rough on the outside but carried hearts of gold, giving her the kind of help she never thought she'd receive. Later that evening, when the sun dipped low and the bikes stood lined up like an army of steel, Jack handed her an envelope. Inside was a note and a check for $25,000. She looked up, stunned. "Jack, I can't take this. It's not charity," he said softly. "It's gratitude. You didn't know who I was and you didn't care. That kind of heart deserves to be lifted, not forgotten." My club took up a collection. Every one of these bikes represents a man or woman whose life was changed because someone like you believed in kindness. Emily's lips trembled. "I don't know what to say. Just promise me one thing," Jack said. "When you see someone else struggling, help them, even if they can't repay you. That's how we keep the world going." As the sun dipped below the horizon, the sound of 100 engines roared to life again, echoing like a heartbeat across the small town. Emily stood on her porch, holding Noah close, watching as the bikers rode off into the distance, their taillights glowing like stars against the darkening road. That night, for the first time in years, she didn't worry about bills or rent. Instead, she sat by her son's bedside, telling him a story about a man who looked rough but carried a heart as big as the open road. A story about how kindness can come full circle in the most unexpected ways. Weeks later, the diner became known for the breakfast that changed everything. Travelers stopped by just to see the place where it all began. And every morning, Emily still wore her apron and poured coffee with that same tired but hopeful smile. Only now, there was something brighter behind it. Hope, because in a world that often feels cold and uncaring, one small act of kindness had sparked a chain reaction that no one would ever forget. If this story touched your heart, please give it a thumbs up, share it with someone who believes in the power of goodness, and subscribe for more real-life stories that restore faith in humanity. Before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe one small act of kindness can truly change a life? And remember, sometimes it's not the grand gestures but the quiet, selfless moments that echo forever.